Formula One, for all its skill and speed, is drastically missing one element: women. But that could all be about to change if one team in particular has its own way. Unfortunately, there are only a handful of women involved in this sport, from the mechanical team to R&D, and none at all on the starting grid. Today we're discussing the Alpine F1 team's Race Her program, so stay right where you are. First up, let's have a quick look at the history of women in the sport. You would be forgiven for not realizing that there have actually been a handful of women who have raced in Formula One, with the first, Maria Teresa de Filippis, entering 5 races across the 1958 and 1959 seasons, starting 3 of them. However, she never managed to finish in the points, and no other woman would take part in an F1 race for another 15 years. Enter Lella Lombardi, the Italian driver who raced for March, RAM, and Williams across 3 seasons. She entered 17 races, starting 12 of them, becoming the only ever female to finish in the points in a Formula One race in the process, scoring half a point in the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix to her immense credit. Since her retirement, only 3 other women have entered an F1 race, with just 7 entries between them. However, none of them have actually started a race. British racer Davina Gallica had 3 entries in the 1974 and 1976 seasons, whilst Desiree Wilson had 1 entry in 1980. The last female driver to enter a Grand Prix was Italian Giovanna Amati, who drove for Brabham in 1992. But since then, 30 years ago, not a single female racer has entered a Grand Prix, which in this day and age borders on scandalous. What do you guys make of the history of female racers? Give us your thoughts below. Next up, we're talking about Alpine's new program. Stick around. There has been a recent push to get more women on the F1 track, with the W Series, the FIA Girls on Track, and the More Than Equal campaigns, which are great, but Alpine's new Race Her program is set to go one better by encouraging female mechanics and engineers, as well as other positions within their organization. Alpine seems to be one of the more progressive teams around right now, and also have the collateral to back up their promise to change attitudes surrounding women in the sport. They have recently announced that W Series driver Abby Pulling would be joining the Alpine Academy affiliate program, also giving her the chance to experience the E20 F1 car out in Saudi Arabia, alongside local female driver Asil Al-Hamad. The team also announced recently that they had appointed a new talent identification and development mentor for the academy and affiliate programs, Alice Powell. Part of her duties will be to mentor drivers like Pulling, whilst also looking out for new female drivers. All of this background work has been influential in bringing the Race Her program to the forefront, with Claire Mesnier, who has a senior position within the Alpine hierarchy, saying the program was born at the same time as we had the change to the Alpine brand. And the idea was, if we want to be world champions, we need to have the best driver in the best car possible. What do you guys make of the program? What else do we know then? Let's see. Well, Mesnier pointed to the very valid point that F1 teams are depriving themselves of 50% of the global population, and if they want to find themselves the best drivers, this simply isn't the best way to go about that particular endeavor. And Otmar Schaffner, who serves as Alpine team principal, says we need to start at the grassroots level, saying, at a young age, when you choose, do I want to go karting, or do I want to go figure skating, or do I want to play volleyball? Not enough of them say, I want to go karting, and therefore the pool that we're choosing from is small. And if you can get that pool bigger, you're going to get better talent. Obviously, he's correct, but he also pointed to the fact that there are 0 female role models currently in the sport, so little girls simply think F1 is not an option for them, and that needs to change. Alpine aren't just doing this to acquiesce to the whims of a society who wants to see equality everywhere, which of course isn't a bad thing. They actually want to know if there is a difference between men and women when racing, and have announced that they will be taking a scientific approach to figure this out. What do you guys make of Alpine's outlook? Pretty great, right? So what will this scientific approach consist of? Stay tuned to hear all about it. Well, one of the longest standing theories is that men are simply stronger than women, so they can sustain more torque during races. This is probably now an outdated theory, as F1 cars all feature power steering. And Mesnier was also speaking about the issue, saying that the approach is a big pillar of the program, before going on to say, even for male drivers, they are all different. They are not the same size, weight, or capability. It's sure we have physical, cognitive, and emotional issues to deal with, and there are differences between men and women. Of course, she's correct. There are some women who are as capable as men when it comes to physical endurance, although when strength comes into the equation, that ratio obviously drops. Mesnier also referenced women's ability to endure more pain, but did concede that reaction times are on average a little slower. She then explained that Alpine are currently working with the Brain Institute in Paris to figure out things on the cognitive side, whilst also exploring options of how best to look into the emotional side. And referencing the team's current drivers, she said how she hoped Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso would be willing to help out with tests, as all they want is a fact-based approach to try to debunk all the preconceptions and stereotypes we have, because we have a lot of ideas, and that's great. Do you guys think there will ever be a female F1 driver? So how long will all this take? Stay with us. Well, of course, you can't simply take a woman off of the street and stick her in an F1 car and wish her the best of luck. You need to nurture and progress talent from a very young age, so it could be a few years yet before we see a real female driving talent challenging the male drivers. Ultimately, though, there is big hope. Laurent Rossi, who serves as Alpine Car's head, has explained it's filling the pipeline from the ground up when referring to the driver program. He went on to say, like from karting, already trying to find someone who's good enough to beat all of the boys in the competition, and then push them up as much as we can and as fast as we can through the ladders. He then said he hopes to have identified 1 or 2 talents by the end of this year, but added that it will be a long road before we have a female in an Alpine seat. Rossi went on to explain that he wants to make sure that the team have a long-term plan, at least for the next 4 or 5 years, which will ensure they gradually move up through the ranks and gain all the relative experience. What do you guys make of Rossi's words? What about more female staff then? Well, this should be a much shorter-term deal. Of course, risking your life in an F1 car is a completely different apprenticeship, time-wise, to learning about a specific part of the car and being able to fix it, for example. Speaking about the issue, Schaffnauer said he believes this will hopefully be achieved very quickly. He outlined a plan of going to universities to recruit the best talent from engineering programs, as well as making sure these ladies are actually interested in the sport. He said, if we get to talk to more of them, then we get to pick the crop of the engineering graduates, whereas before, we had just those that are interested in motor racing, and we want to expand that to make sure that we have more females that understand that there is a great career to be had within motor racing, and then within Alpine. He went on to say that there is still no guarantee that a female engineer would want to work in such a male-dominated industry, even after her internship. But the first problem is simply getting young female talent through the door into those rookie positions. Less than a quarter of UK graduates are actually female, which is another big problem. But one of the goals of the Race Her program is to send ambassadors into schools to encourage young girls that F1 is, in fact, an option for them. Great stuff. As usual, thanks for dropping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing all sorts of other fun bits and pieces. And why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video, whilst also subscribing to our channel. Bye guys.